Hi everybody and welcome to our news update for the week of June 30th. So obviously there's a lot of information going around about this potential fifth park. We are going to get into that, but I'm going to start with some of our more generic news updates just to keep you informed, and then we'll dig into why that's exciting and why it may not be for the reasons that you're thinking at the end of the podcast. So to start with, a couple of quick updates. So the Astro Orbiter refurbishment is now finished. It's reopened. Really excited to see that back up. It was very bizarre having that completely removed for as long as it was. So even just aesthetically, if that's not your ride of choice, aesthetically, I think everybody likes that kind of movement in Tomorrowland. So it's great to see that back up and running. We've got some new concrete at the front of Haunted Mansion. Not the most exciting news in the world, but any update is a good update, right? In that same kind of area, we've got the Hall of Presidents that just reopened again with Trump re-added for the new presidency. So that is now reopened and available to you if that's a show that you like to see. I don't know how long the Hall of Presidents is going to stay alive for with everything that's going on in that kind of area. So if it's something that you like, pop on over there. For those of you who like to stay in the deluxe resorts, some good news for you. They are adding some extended evening hours to Hollywood Studios. This is likely to accommodate for the fact that there's going to be Halloween's coming in the not too distant future. So having that extra capacity in the extra evening hours, it is 2 additional hours at Hollywood Studios, and that's for guests staying at the deluxe resorts or villas. The next update is about Test Track. So we are officially in cast member previews. This is super thrilling. We've been waiting for this one for a while. So obviously with the opening date of July 22nd, we were expecting this to be coming. So the cast member previews are going to be going until July 10th. On July 11th, they're doing previews for Golden Oaks and Club 33 members. July 12th will be for DVC Vacation Club members. And then after that, we finally get to the annual pass holder previews. So these are going to be July 13th to 16th, as well as the 18th and 19th. And this is going to be based on having a park reservation and then a virtual queue. So this is not unexpected. We never thought virtual queues were going away permanently. So you will need to have a reservation for the park for that day. And then it will be a 7 a.m. and a 1 p.m. virtual queue openings. We're all familiar with this. You love or hate that system, depending on your luck that day. But at least it's a system that we're familiar with and that we get that preview time in. So if you're an annual pass holder, make sure you get your park reservation early, especially for those first couple days. Everybody's going to be rushing to be the first one to get on this attraction during those preview days. So if that's important to you, you might even want to have a couple backup dates pre-reserved in case that you don't get the virtual queue on your first day of choice. So great news about Test Track, lots of previews coming. There's already videos starting to come out about it. We'll look a little bit more at those next week. But in the meantime, get your reservations in. And for all of you who don't qualify for a preview, at least your wait is also almost over. Now, before I dig right into the new fifth park rumors, I'm going to go a little bit into some information that this brought out about the Monsters, Inc. Doors coaster. So as part of this whole proposal, we got to see a map of the footprint of the Monsters, Inc. door coaster. So this is going to be going in what was previously cast member parking. So that's going to be taken over by this building. This building is huge. Now, we're not talking Guardians of the Galaxy huge, but it is larger than Rise of the Resistance. So Rise of the Resistance is 97,000 square feet. This is going to be 103,000 square feet. So this is a massive building that is getting put in there. It will be the second largest coaster on all of Disney property. So very exciting. We also got a little bit more information about the design of the coaster. So we've already seen the lift mechanism, which I think is amazing. They do refer to you being shot out at that point, so I think we can assume that this is going to be some type of a launch coaster, which is also great. The other thing that's really cool is that they're going to have multiple cars on the track at a time, which is good for capacity, but they're also going to allow you to see those other cars, which totally makes sense in the design of this. If you remember the sequence from the movies, You can see doors whipping around all over the place throughout that whole segment. So seeing those other coasters absolutely makes sense within the storytelling component of this. This is a really great idea, and honestly, the more cars you can get on the track simultaneously, the better it is for capacity, which is good news for everybody. Okay, so now it's time to dig into the talk of the 5th Disney park. So this is coming out of a new agreement with the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. So this is the new version of what used to be the Reedy Creek Improvement District. So if you followed this at all over the last few years, there has been a lot of turmoil here. So they kind of disbanded the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which gave Disney a lot more control over what they were doing on their property. This was kind of a battle with DeSantis over this authority, and he brought in all his own people on this new tourism oversight district. This caused a lot of issues, a lot of friction, and eventually ended up causing lawsuits on both sides. So honestly, the best thing about this is not what the plan says, but that they have agreed on a plan and they are once again working together to move things forward, because we were kind of at a standstill. They had gotten rid of the previous agreement, fallen back to the one before that, and we're in this standstill over what was happening next. So as far as what it actually says, yes, there is reference to a 5th large park. So they are allowed to build 1 additional large park and 2 additional smaller parks, which would be more of a kind of water park size. I think the important thing to note here is this isn't new. This was included in the previous Horizon 2020 proposal with the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which was written in 2010. So it's not like this is a new concept and they are announcing that a 5th park is coming out. They have been keeping their options open for this park all along, and they are just continuing to do so. So if they want to pull that trigger someday, they could. But this is not saying that, yes, Disney's building new parks. I don't think we're there yet. I also want to point out that it is not the first time that they have had a placeholder in these types of proposals that they aren't using. If you look back historically, Disney has had the ability to build a nuclear power plant on that property. Not an option they took, but it was there. They were keeping their options open. So it makes sense for Disney to kind of put as much as they can possibly fit in these types of proposals that they think will get pushed through, just so they're never backed into a corner where there's a thing they want to do and they can't get approval. So the nice thing about this is the proposal's in, it's been approved, they've worked together, and we are moving forward with these all pre-approved, leaving their options open. But what is also in here is the committed dollar amounts that Disney is spending on improvements. And I think this is where the excitement comes in. So I know when talking about, we see a lot of concept art, a lot of blue sky thinking, a lot of things get announced and then they seem like a sure thing and they get defunded. This is not the scenario we're in anymore, because they have committed to, they have to spend $8 billion on improvements in the next 10 years and then up to 17 over the next 20. So the improvements that we're seeing, all these new lands that are getting development, that money is committed. We are moving forward. So that is really great news to hear. Now, this is good for both Disney and for Florida, because what they've written into this agreement is that 50% of the services and materials used for this development need to originate from Florida. So this is not only going to bring tourism to Florida, but it's providing jobs, it's providing revenue, it's bringing a lot of economic movement within the state, which is great for everybody. The thing I find super interesting about this is the attendance predictions. That might make you panic a little bit, that crowds are going to get unruly, and this is why the investment is there, because not only do they have to build capacity in the parks, but they need to build additional restaurants, additional hotels. A lot needs to happen if they think that's where they're getting to in attendance, that they're having that much growth over the next 20 years. A lot of capacity needs to be built in a variety of structures. So a lot is actually being said here. What isn't being said is that a 5th park is being built. it is a possibility. They're never going to cut themselves off from the possibility of growth. But I think realistically, we're going to see a lot more park expansions rather than a new park. And this makes sense. So they've seen this in the past, that when they add a new park, rather than people extending their trips, they tend to get a little bit choosier of what parks they go to. So they might skip Animal Kingdom to go to this new park, or skip a Hollywood Studios day. Nobody's skipping the Magic Kingdom, let's be honest. But they end up kind of eating at their own attendance and their own revenue when they add an additional park. So even if you're looking at a 7-day stay, a week-long stay, if there's 4 parks, where there's 5 parks, you're still staying for 7 days. You're just changing which parks you're going to on each individual day. So it's not necessarily as much of a return as you would think, adding that additional park, as opposed to just supporting capacity. And rather than doing one giant opening in 10 years from now, they can constantly have new things to draw you back in for those trips. I think financially, this is a way more sound plan. It makes a lot more sense. And it gives us a reason to come back constantly. And honestly, I'm not disappointed that every year we're getting something new, as opposed to sitting stagnant for the next 5 to 10 years while we wait for a giant reveal. So I think that's likely the way they're going to go. I don't predict seeing a 5th park announced in the near future, but I've been wrong before. I will likely be wrong again. So that is all the updates for this week. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow to keep updated on the latest Disney news. And we will see you next week.